This is Monday afternoon. I said that just before I pressed the button for record to reassure myself. Yes, this is definitely Monday afternoon, and that is definitely the face of the immortal. Oh, well, are you immortal?
Jesus, Jude, if I'm
are you immortal?
God, I'm more
deathless. In a sense, you're deathless. Like, you know,
yes, my legacy will live on.
It'll be like, yeah, exactly. Like we used to sing a song. John Brown's body lies mouldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on. Did you learn that one at school?
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing the songs we learned, you know, and we learned all those black and white minstrel songs, which wouldn't be tolerated now.
They're not
Camptown races. Camptown races, 5 miles long.
Do that.
And the old folks at home.
Remember the version, you know, about the telegram boys raise the door and she's gone to sing that telegram for me. Go and sing. And then it goes, guess who died on the bus today?
You're a cruel man. There's a vicious streak in you, despite your amiable exterior.
Anyway, let's go for it.
Guess who died on the bus today?
Very
good. Very good.
Telegram.
Okay. That's settled the more important things. Will we start with the price gouging?
A quick thing way over at we talked a wee bit on Friday, and I'm sorry for throwing this at you.
Yeah.
But we talked a wee bit on Friday. You know, maybe it was on the View on Thursday night, and you know, as we said on Friday, had what he said come from Michelle O'Neill or Mary Lou McDonald or Conor Murphy or someone who would said, well, but he used language about undemocratic, one-sided, whatever else, and you know, not the language you would normally hear from the Fine Gael West Brit Party type thing. Then on Sunday, he was interviewed again, and he's now saying that the whole thing about the border poll should be sorted out. I don't know what Radker is playing at, but it seems like there's a sea change in Dublin's attitude. What do you think?
I saw that second one as well, Pat. I wouldn't be quite so optimistic. I thought actually it was an exercise in balancing.
Maybe.
It was all in the one interview, I think. I'm pretty certain. He just divided it in two parts. Yeah. But in this second part, I really did feel he brought up the subject of, for example, had Sinn Féin increased their vote, and he said no, they just got the same thing from what they had, just that the other parties were lower down. And he said that he essentially poured cold water on the idea that there was a need for a border poll, but he said there was a need for investigating it. So I thought he was balancing the rather blunt thing on Friday with this rather more cautious and slightly anti-Sinn Féin line, while leaving the door open for further research into.
But he said there should be a border poll. And remember, he said before that a simple majority wouldn't be enough. He's rolled back in that. He says a simple majority is enough now.
Well, I thought he talked good sense in that, Pat. I thought. Like he said, 50+1, that's the rule. But he laid an awful lot of emphasis on the but, which was that, of course, you don't want to take 1 million Protestants or Unionists into a new state, kicking and screaming.
But Jude, my answer to that all the time, and I know that, and I know the risk, and I know, but why keep almost 1 million Catholics? Against you know, like as there's a Judge Richard Humphreys, a very well-known High Court judge, and he said the last time Radker came out with this one, he came out the next morning and said basically if 50+1 is enough to keep the union, 50+1 should be enough for unity.
And in fact, it would strike at the very, if you didn't go with 50+1, that notion, it won't be 50+1, but except you went with that notion that anything that's a majority, however slender, must be, you know, that's the way it is. You might that's what democracy is. Do you remember Michelle Gildernew? Remember she thanked the group of students from Belfast who took the car down and voted because you got a majority of 4 or 5 or something.
And that made the difference.
Nobody said, "Oh no, you got to cancel that." Everybody said, you know, go with it.
Yeah, but the thing, you can't have a hierarchy of voter that one person's vote counts more than the others.
But this is I think this is a sort of a not concerted, but it's a repeated attempt to damp down or to emphasize the difficulties that might be involved in a vote that it was for a united Ireland.
Yeah.
But I suppose I'd take Leo's line on it as being not bad.
Well, the other thing as well, he said the British Secretary of State should clarify what is the test for.
That's important. I agree with that completely. Completely.
Yeah.
We should never have been put into the bloody Good Friday Agreement with us.
I'm surprised that Nationals agreed that one person had the right. Sure, it's like the Scottish independence. After the last vote, what do you call him? David, the Prime Minister at the time, said the best advice. What?
Cameron.
David Cameron, just a senior moment there. Cameron said that the best advice he could give any successor is never ever agree to an independence vote again. So do we have the same situation in Northern Ireland where maybe there's a vast majority of MLAs of the Nationalist hue and they're refusing to have a vote? Like look at how many SNP people have been returned, and there's still reluctance to go for an independence referendum.
Yeah. Well, there's only two factors, and then we should maybe move on. One is that Scotland will have voted in just over a year's time.
Yeah.
And that's going to be so important, so very important. And the other thing is, more and more people in positions of power are accepting the fact that we've got to prepare for, or at least lay out what a new Ireland might be. And that's exactly what should happen. It should be just maybe put the foot down on the accelerator on that one, rather than say, well, we'll do that sometime in, say, the next 5 years. Don't like that talk at all. Yeah. Okay, let's get to price gouging, Pat. You were the one who's complaining about it, and now I'm having to bring it up.
Yes.
We're talking about the semi-liberated part of our country.
Yeah, no, Jude, there's price. First, what brought to mind this morning was my dear Mrs. Killen. She's know what our electricity bill is for the past 2 months. Now, Jude, this is summer. It mightn't be great, but it's still summer. So, it's gone up from something like 170 euros to 350.
Oh,
now, Jude, I don't know how the hell. And we started chatting about this whole thing, and she says, "Can you imagine? Like, Jude, this computer's on. I don't think there's very much else on in this house today." But can you imagine, like, if you have 3 or 4 kids having showers, having their TVs on and whatever, all the accoutrements and instruments that young people need nowadays. Yep. Then in the middle of winter, if there's 2 or 3 of them studying, they can't all study in the one place. They're in different rooms. You have to keep on eating. Dude, I wonder what the hell the heating bill, and God bless any working family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for people like ourselves who are so to speak childless, I mean, we were not childless, but they're no longer with us.
No longer.
I think, we won't like what's happening, having to pay bigger bills, but we can live with it. But there are people whose margins just cannot accept that, because they really are just getting by each month. Yeah. And now this kind of, I mean, it's not just a couple of pennies. It's, you say it's 100, 150 euro more for the heating. I don't know. I think it's a real difficulty. I think the government will have to, they say, I read an article about this, but they said that the government in the South would have to do a few big payments, for easing people, rather than pass a law whereby they'd be getting steady installments of something. Yeah. Because they don't want to commit. They want to get it over with, and let's get back to
I was reading yesterday that I think it's Shell, the profits have gone up by 80 million a day.
Jeez.
Dude, they have capped prices, energy prices in France and Germany and Belgium, as far as people can check it out for themselves. Yeah. And I don't see why they can't do them. The tax revenue that's going to these, or not the tax revenue, the revenue that's going to Shell and these companies is phenomenal. By the way, the other thing, the Irish government today, their economic statements coming out as we speak, and apparently the financial situation is far, far better than they anticipated, several billion more than, so like it's not as if they can't, if they're better off, So
that's good.
And all this sort of stuff. And Jude, let's be honest, see if you're well off or reasonably well off, people like you and me who have gone, we don't have kids leeching off us anymore, and so on. But I would hate it to be back in my 40s or 50s with 3 kids, and a couple of them heading off to university and stuff like that.
Oh, jeez.
The pressure people are under. Is, I know. By the way, that'd be nice. What about the ordinary working people? I don't mean that in the pejorative sense. My father was one of them, and we lived in a council house. When you're getting a very low income, and there's not much room for a maneuver, and you're trying to feed, clothes, and whatever, educate your kids. Jesus, the stress of that. If somebody needs a new pair of shoes, that's massive.
Yeah, well, I just have to find a way of doing it, because it's like during COVID, which actually I thought most of the countries, Ireland, the south of Ireland, and Britain handled it not bad. That idea of furlough, I thought that was pretty good. I would never have thought of that. Now, I know it's massive debt and all the rest as a result, but at least it kept the society ticking over in some sort of form. Yeah. But the other thing is this: we discovered new ways of working, which will, I think, bear consideration. And that is, I heard of a case now. Let me think what this was. It was 2 people. Yes, I think it was 2 people who are working together. Right? They have a little company. 2 of them. One of them is going to be living in the States.
Yeah.
The other one's going to be living here.
Yeah.
In the north. But they're going to be running a company. Now, that's astonishing. I mean, anybody who knows about IT would probably say big deal. But for me, that knocks me sideways,
There's 2 things I would say there. Imagine you're working from home now, Jude. You have to provide your own heating, electricity, everything. That's a big, and see it sitting in a room in Donegal or Tyrone or Down or somewhere on a winter's day, and there's snow outside. You're the one.
On the other hand, Pat, other hand, you wouldn't have to pay for your petrol to get to the work, and secondly, you'd be saving on time, because for those, about commutes, Jesus, in Dublin, drive you crazy. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the price gouging. Price gouging. You feel that it's something to do with the way Irish people are built. We don't like complaining.
Yeah, there's a guy in the Irish Times this morning said that if we were in Germany, I've seen Germans in action, and they're going, "Oh no, too much. We see in a restaurant, like Jude, I'll use a simple example, and a certain member of my family was in a restaurant quite recently and got overcharged. Yeah. And rather than making a fuss, just paid it and walked out, and he said, "Grand, no hassle." And I said to him, "Jesus, you're overcharged." I mean, on the very simple thing of the receipt, he knew he was overcharged, but he wouldn't go back. I have no doubt. I knew a Dutch guy that, and he was a very nice fella. But like, if he was charged 2 pennies more, he would have went back in and says, "Look, excuse me, you owe me 2 pennies." And there's this Irish thing. I think it's a culture thing that we don't complain. There's this. You go to a restaurant in Dublin, our prices. Somebody said in the Irish Times this morning, we have Scandinavian prices, but not Scandinavian wages. We're now in the Republic of Ireland, one of the most costly places to live, and we live on an island, and there's the war in Ukraine, but there's also price gouging, and there's no doubt about that. But we don't complain. The Germans would, the Dutch would, the Belgians would. So why don't we?
Well, I think they're 2 separate problems. There's not 2 separate, but 2 linked problems. One is the question of how much people are having to pay now compared to the past, whether it's your bill for your electricity or whether it's a meal out or whatever. That's the first thing. The other thing is about complaining. If you go out for have a meal or get a service of some kind, and you figure that you're overcharged, or really, say a meal, you weren't charged differently from what they said on the menu, but really the meal was bloody lousy, or you're not keen. Logic demands that you go back to the guy and say, "Look, I'm sorry, but that meal wasn't up to snuff, really, or you've overcharged me here for a couple of quid." That's fine in theory, but in practice, Pat, if there's one thing that'll ruin an evening, I've experienced it with a guy going for a meal. It just puts a hole, even though they're right. It still puts a bloody big hole in the evening. It just everything's awkward and unhappy, and
Absolutely.
There's not. I don't think anybody wins.
My eldest son told of a man. He says every time he went out with him, he says the night used to end in a damn squib, because he said, this is some years back, and he says because he said, no matter what happened, if somebody, the waiter came over, is everything okay, sir? Yes, there you are, but the chips were a wee bit cold and such. And he was an Englishman, of course. And he says, that just, he pissed me off. He says, why didn't he just pay the bloody? But the other thing, do you remember the old Irish one years ago, the offerings? You know,
yes.
It was a big man in the village. Nobody wanted to be seen to be a tight arse. And I think, Jude, that's a cultural thing, because we were all so poor. We didn't want any. There was a pride thing that we didn't want to be seen that we couldn't afford to pay for something.
Oh, that was I think that was so. That was monstrous. That was so bad. That's monstrous. In a different class completely.
I know, but there was a mentality there that we wouldn't give in. That we wouldn't want to be seen. Jesus, people give money that they didn't even have.
Well, you talk about God and mammon,
anyway,
judge the virtue of the person by how much they pay. Jesus, desperate. The other thing you said was that you thought people should do research into and compare prices. I think that's a very good idea, and you have sites that will give you, for a product, they'll give you the different places you can get it at a different price. But the fact of the matter is, Pat, I'm sure you'll find this yourself. It's a pain in the butt,
I know.
That doubles up your time. You can spend all day looking. Oh no, to get it there. When to get there, get it there. Get the bloody thing. A lot of people feel that way. I don't want to give the time to research.
No, and a lot of. But Jude, I'll give you a simple example, because I'm a connoisseur of cheap whiskey.
I thought you were going to say you're. I thought you were going to say you'll give me a simple example because you're a simple man.
If you look, the nearest place to us is Derry. It's literally 5 minutes away. And you can go in 2 or 3 different shops, and if you're buying some of the best known brands, you can get 3 and 4 quid difference. And so on. And okay, if you want to go to the same place and pay 22 or 23 quid, but if you want to go to another place, maybe you're paying 18 or 19.
Oh yeah.
Over a course of a year, on that one product, you're saving quite a lot.
Aye, absolutely, I agree. And there's a satisfaction too. If it was as clear cut as that, I go into this shop or I go into that shop, and you know the difference. Well, you be out of your mind not to go into the shop. Is
not exactly,
deal. Here, but the final thing in this, Pat, you know this now. Supposing you're living about Burt, or Clonmany, or Carndona, or Oma, or wherever, right?
Wherever.
Yeah. And you you're getting an extension built, or you're getting roadway surfaced or whatever. Some service is going to involve a few thousand quid.
Yeah.
If you give that to Joe Bloggs from Derry or from Armagh or wherever, because he's going to give you a really good deal, he comes well recommended, and the price is right. If you give the job to him and you don't give it to Mickey down the road, even though Mickey's charging you more, you'll be a sorry man, because Mickey will resent that for the rest of his days. Am I right or wrong in that?
Absolutely. I've lived through that as well. People that you meet and you're going, what's wrong with him? And then you realize, oh shit, I've said something or done something, or my mother or father had done something 25
What's the answer to that, Pat? What would you do?
Jude, we live on an island, and we are small communities. And Jude, you need a sociologist to explain that one. And it's what is it? Long memories are part of our psyche. Jude, I can't. And by the way, you've had on the real thing. Jude, one of our problems as a culture one, we simply do not complain about getting ripped off. It's not part of us. Very few of us have the courage to do it, because we live in small communities.
And it keeps on going on and on and on. I remember talking to my dear wife about. I said, all the places we have lived, I've never had a real sense of community. Coherent community. And she said, community. I'll tell you what community is. Community is your grandfather wouldn't sell that field to my grandfather, and we hate you people.
Well, that is true. That is definitely.
I guess overstated, but there's a truth.
No, but I get the point. I get the point.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a hard one, because especially in that particular one where we're seeing the local people get the job, because everybody agrees we should be buying local.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be going to Amazon or whatever. But it's hard to do it at the same time.
It's hard to do it. But if you get Mickey from Oma down to Burt, and Mickey comes down and he says, "Look, Pat, I can do that job for $2,000."
Yeah.
And Charlie down the road, what do you call it? Who's as a bit of a cowboy, and he says, "But that'll be $3,500,000," and he probably won't. why should you be under pressure to employ Charlie when you know Mickey will do a far better job?
Because you'll be meeting Charlie every day or every second day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's again, if you start measuring things up, would it be better to pay the extra $1.5 grand or be in amiable terms every time we met Charlie? A lot of people would say, "Oh, Jesus, I'll pay the money." You know, that's the way it is.
Because after you live here.
My sister had a house in God be good to her, in where was it, Portneuf or somewhere, and she got something done, but she says, "Oh, we're going to have to give it to whatever your man's name was, the local guy." I says, "Is he really good?" "Oh, he is not, but
we have to give it.
No choice. Yes. There you go. Right. Let's talk about. Here's one I didn't tell you about, Pap. I'm going to tell you now. Speed cameras.
Yes.
Apparently, they was in the. I'm sure you saw it many times today. These speed cameras that don't just get you at a particular point, but they've been around for a while, but they haven't been.
Oh yeah, these on average speed.
On average, yeah, they take you here, they take you to this point, and then they work out the average.
Work out the speed.
So you could just have speeded for a mile, and you might have kept the law for the next 20 miles, but you could still find yourself in the law. Know something? I would hate to be caught by them, but I think I should be if I'm speeding. Speeding is the most ridiculous thing. It shouldn't be allowed. Simply shouldn't.
I'm not sure how this works, Jude, because it really didn't yet. But do they work out the average speed or just where you've been speeding?
No, average speed.
If I speed up to pass somebody out, and then
it's a Limerick. It's the Limerick to it's a Dublin to Limerick road, right? At the M7, and they found that almost 50 motorists a day were getting fined for exceeding the speed limit over an extended period. That is, over an extended period, part of the road, I assume.
Yeah.
Because there's a new average speed safety cameras that have been installed. That actually makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. I don't think I'd buy your if you have to break the speed limit, Pat, to pass somebody out. Well, you're breaking the speed limit.
Yeah, but I remember there was an L driver, but say doing 40, 45 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I remember passing that person out. I'm sure I was hitting 60, and it was on a 55 limit, maybe 65 I was doing. But the next thing I saw a cop car with the radar, the air dryer out the window, and I thought, "Oh shit, here I'm caught again." But in fairness, never heard anything about it. But I thought, I'm getting done for maybe 10 seconds passing somebody out.
It's hard to know, Pat. The thing is, if you're doing 60 or whatever instead of 55, it's a very short time. But I mean, it doesn't take long to kill somebody.
No,
I was for my sins. I was caught with a camera a few years ago now. I was doing 37 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and the reason I was doing 37 was I was going along, and suddenly there was quite a steep incline, so I wasn't putting my foot any harder on the accelerator, but the car was going faster because the law of gravity was working. I had a choice. I could pay about something like £120, or I could pay something like 50 or something. Only I could pay 50 if I went to a day of retraining.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, this is going to be some bloody pain in the bum going, and I'm going to, tell me how to be a good citizen and so on. I'll tell you something. They showed us videos of where they just put up these cones, and they showed you the difference between a car doing 30 and a car doing 37. Because all of us, for some reason, have done 37 in the 30-mile-an-hour zone. And then when you're doing 37 instead of 30, again and again, they are smashing into the cones. So, I mean, that was a human being. That human being was dead. So, when you see it that way, you begin to see how bloody daft it is.
My big thing, I don't mind legitimate, and I mean, I'm using the word deliberately chosen word, legitimate speed checks. What I detest is these shooting fish in a barrel speed checks. You come around a corner and then suddenly, what do you call it? There's this camera and so on. And it's usually where the speed changes from 60 to 50 and nobody's even seen it, and they're sort of slowing down. I know, and by the way, they're all over the place in Donegal. You've come around. Now, see if you're doing 70 miles an hour on a straight road and it clearly says 60, if you're caught, I have no sympathy for you. But this sort of shooting, even I heard even a Garda superintendent on one day. He says, I have to admit, he says, some of these speed traps, he says, no wonder the public get annoyed. He says, they're basically revenue earners, and that's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, they do say that about parking as well, about Belfast, and it's a great source of income for them. But I know, I agree with you, and I'd be mad as hell if I was caught with some lurking cop jumps out from behind the bush. But the fact is, I mean, people are dying every week. Every year, it's 50, 60, 70, I don't know, maybe over 100.
Oh, yeah, Jude, there's an increase this year in the Republic of Ireland road.
Oh, God.
I don't think anybody's arguing with the.
It's sort of crazy, but Pat, it's sort of mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we allow that as a civilized society, allow that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I honestly think that they should use every resource they have to persuade people, well, one way or another, whether it's a carrot or a stick, to stop speeding, because as I understand it, speeding is what involved in any number of fatalities.
Absolutely, that's a major factor.
That or drink.
Drink driving's gone way down.
But they need to crack it. God, I think future generations look back and say, God, those people weren't half civilized. They didn't mind.
Dr. Collins, we're down to 8 minutes, by the way.
I know that. I've got my eye on it. Okay. COVID. Tell me about that.
Here's the question I was going to ask you. All right, I have, as far as I know myself, I am over 65, so is my dear Mrs. Shirley.
Yeah.
And we have all three of us, or all two of us, have got 3 Jags.
Yeah.
I heard a guy on the other day on RT radio says, look, if you're over 65, it's an advertisement actually, you would be advised to get another. And I've said, wait a minute, so in another 3 months, if there's another spike, will I be advised that recent vaccination is worn off? You know, so where do we stop? Do I have to get 10, 12, 15? Jude, I'm reaching the stage. Now, I am pro-vaccination, but I'm getting to the stage of saying, wait a minute, now, hey, look, where does the body start reacting against all this?
Okay. Do you feel the same way about, say, blood pressure tablets?
No.
Well, it's illogical. I mean, in both cases, you're putting something into your system.
A lot of these inoculations, they've only been developed recently, and you know.
Pat,
but you sort of say, right? I am, and by the way, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but I'm sort of saying I've put at least 3 of them into my system, and after maybe 4 even. And after every 3 months, they're saying, no, you need another one. And
maybe you do. I, for example, I get a flu jab now every year.
Same here.
But I don't. If they said to me, you'll have to get it once every 3 months, I'd say, well, I wish I hadn't to, but this is good for me. I mean, big pharma is a big thing. I've just finished reading a novel about it. Called The Constant Gardener by John le Carre, for somebody who wants. So they make a fortune because so many people of our age, your age, anyway, or my age, certainly, the medication, legal drugs is a part of their lives. It keeps them alive. So why not have, if it's necessary, you might want it, why not have an injection for controlling this virus? I mean, they say they're working towards a tablet for this.
Yeah, and they say they're
getting more concerned having to take a tablet every 3 months.
They said they were also working for a sort of an omnium drug that covers everything.
But if it was in pill form, would you be as concerned?
No, it's Jude. I say if they turned around and said, look, hey, here's one now, inoculation, Jag, or what the hell you want to call this bloody thing, and said, look, this is it gives you protection for a year. I'd say, but Jude, I'd say in this last year I've had 3 inoculations, and I'm sort of saying how many more do you know? There's a part of me saying, look, I'm getting reluctant to get in more.
But it's illogical, Pat. I mean, if you think about it, because if you take drugs, legal drugs for blood pressure or for whatever else, most people take some kind of tablet. We don't ask ourselves too much.
But is this comparing like with like? It
is like with like. I mean, they both are affecting your. I mean, blood pressure tablets are presumably get into your blood or affect your blood stream in some way. And you inject people with a needle, it gets into their system. So
No,
it's
but
the same thing, except in a different
I
form.
can see there's going to be some sort of stonewalling by people at this time and say, look, wait a minute, you told us that one would work, and now you're telling us a second, you need a second, and now you're telling me we need a fourth.
Aye, but I mean, I agree that that's inconsistent.
These are not what would you say, trusted, like, Jude, these are all relatively recent. What happens? A lot of people are saying, look, maybe 5 years down the road, they'll be saying, hey, wait a minute, this is,
It's a possibility, Pat. But again, the logic of that drives you back to being an anti-vaxxer, because you say, not only do I not want to take 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 jabs, I don't want to take any jabs.
No, I accept totally that we needed. Jude, at the early days, people are dying at a hell of a rate, and they didn't know how to treat it, and they didn't have any vaccinations, and the vaccinations were definitely a game changer. But the sort of law of diminishing returns says, on how many times do I have to get done before this thing's sort of clear, and what damage and what are the outcomes of getting so many?
Yeah, well, we're running short of time, but the final thing I'm saying this is, when I a few times I was go out. We were in Dublin there a couple of weeks ago, briefly for the day, and people shopping, people working on TV. I see people at football matches. There's no sign of inhibition of any kind.
No,
so they're not dying, obviously. No. The society is operating pretty much as normal. So whatever strain it isn't hitting so many people. And it's not hitting so many people as bad as it did. So think positive. For God's sake, think positive. They're not out to get you. If they want to get you, they'll get you another way.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll shoot you. Okay. Last 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Oklahoma death penalty.
Yeah. Jude, I love them. I think American society is actually starting to disintegrate. It's getting very regressive. A guy with an Irish name, I think his name was O'Connor.
I saw that, John O'Connor.
John O'Connor.
Republican.
He's the Republican. He's the Attorney General in Oklahoma. And he went to the judges last week and he got permission to start the death penalty again. So they're going to have, apparently they're going to have a celebration of a death a month, an execution a month now for the next about 2 years in Oklahoma. And Jude, when you take in, I sort of started to think, yesterday, I think it was as well, in Akron, Ohio, another black man was shot dead by the police. 60 bullets apparently found in him, and he was running away. Now, the cops claim that he might have fired on them, though the proof about that's far from conclusive. And you sort of go, like, and then you take in Roe v. Wade. Now, everybody's got a different opinion on that. And then you look at the Supreme Court, American Supreme Court, which has become basically the arm of the Republican Party. Okay. And you look at their media now, like Fox News and so on, you're going, good, merciful Jesus. What happened to the shining city on the hill that America was supposed to be doing for us all? I'm waiting for public execution soon.
Okay. Well, we've only a minute and a half. Are you up? Leave aside the public bit. Nobody has said, I haven't read anything where people are saying they're going to have a public. Are you against the death penalty?
Yeah.
So am I. I think it's a sign of failure in a society. I think why I wonder, are psychologists not working? Another way they're working on solving this problem of the virus.
Yeah.
Why are psychologists and medical people not working on ways of changing the thinking of people who take a gun and shoot somebody or murder somebody with a knife or whatever? The answer is not to put them in an electric chair. The answer is, as I see it, is to work and try to change their mind. Now, when I was young, one flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah.
This electrical charge and so on.
Electrical charge.
I saw that as brutal. Yeah. I know for a fact that that's still used.
Yeah.
And it's not, if you stop to think about it, it's not as brutal as putting a person in a chair and killing them.
And frying them.
So really what you want to do is, whether through persuasion, through support, whether through physical or psychological help, lead that person out of the state they're in and give them a chance at life. Anything else is barbaric.
Absolutely.
Although I do like the show Oklahoma. I could sing it for you, Pat. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. Okay, Pat, that's it.
All the best, Jude.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, Jude.